Okay, Grant, take it away.
Good afternoon. We're thrilled to begin our three-part series on professional development today. I want to thank you for joining us and again for your dedicated support to our NAD community. My name is Grant Kelly. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Athletics at Johns Hopkins University. I want to personally thank our NAD Digital Committee members for putting together this series. Over the next 2 months, we'll dive into 3 critical areas as we continue to navigate a prominently virtual work environment. We want today's discussion to be really interactive, so please feel free to post your questions to the Q&A section, and we'll do our absolute best to answer them throughout the session. Leading and moderating our discussion today is Mike Oblinger. Mike, who most recently served as the Director of Major Gifts and the Annual Fund for the Tiger Foundation at LSU, is in his 4th year as the Senior Associate Athletic Director of Development at UConn in 2019-2020. Mike is a member of the Director of Athletics, David Benedict's leadership team, and its Chief Development Officer. Mike has been at LSU since 2010 and served as both an Assistant Director for Development and Associate Director of Development before being named to his current position in 2015. He oversaw the daily function of the Tiger Athletic Fund's major giving efforts, annual fund, and prospect management. Mike is a 2005 graduate of Monmouth College with a degree in history and political science. He earned a master's degree from Western Illinois in 2007. And last but not least, Mike joined the NAD executive team this year, and I'm pleased to have him lead us today and begin our professional development series. So Mike, good luck and take us away.
Thanks, Grant. Honored and happy to be here to lead this discussion. As Grant mentioned, we want this to be interactive. Please use the chat feature, use the Q&A as we flow through different topics and so forth. We will have time for questions, obviously, at the end, but if there's something that is relevant to where we are with our discussion, then we'll certainly jump off there. So, I'd like to introduce our star lineup here of panelists. Addie Rumble, Development Officer, Kentucky Wesleyan University. Addie returned to Kentucky Wesleyan in her current role this past summer. Addie is a former women's basketball player for the Panthers and joins the advancement team following 2 years at the University of Nebraska as a development assistant for the Husker Athletic Fund. Mahmoud Sheikh, Associate AD, University of Idaho. Mahmoud previously worked at Idaho for 6 years from 2003 to 2008 in various development positions, most recently as the Assistant Athletic Director and Executive Director of the VSF. Mahmoud spent 3 years at the University of Colorado as the Assistant Athletic Director and Buff Club Director. Howard Milton, Senior Associate AD, University of Illinois, a role he's held since 2016. Howard has served in a variety of roles since joining the athletic development team in 2005. After spending his first 4 years at the University, at Illinois as the Assistant Athletic Director for Event Management, Howard was named the 2019 NAD National Fundraiser of the Year. Tatiana Mulvalley Olinger, Assistant Athletic Director for Development at Naval Academy, arrived in 2019 after serving as the Director of Annual Giving at the University of Arizona. She also served as a member of the annual giving teams at Temple and Johns Hopkins. She was a 2019 participant in the Bobby Purcell Mentoring Program. Welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us. Before we jump into the core topic and why we're here, we're going to start with something positive. Obviously, there's a lot of change going on. Nothing is the same, a lot of anxiety and so forth. So this group thought that we were going to start with something positive and we're going to end with something positive. So I want to start with you, Howard. Tell us something that's going on positive on your campus and we'll go around.
Mike, thanks so much. And just want to welcome everyone. I'm real excited to be here and be a part of this panel with some esteemed colleagues. A lot of positivity going on the University of Illinois campus, but I think what I'm most proud of is some things that aren't happening just within the topic of raising money and raising dollars. And I say that so that you know that we've learned a lot about ourselves and what kind of team we are. Because of COVID, many departments are facing a lot of cuts. There are a lot of resource challenges, right, due to the disruption. And what our team has done is, because of all the complex COVID testing as per the Big Ten Conference, many team members in our development team or advancement teams, one of them, we take turns throughout the week manning certain buildings, because to enter some of our facilities, you've got to have your temp and pulse taken. We've got an app that whether you've had your test or not. And so our staff is volunteered to take some of those shifts over. And it starts at 7 in the morning and ends in the evenings. And we've got a great staff to help us coordinate that, but our whole development team is taking a part of that. So while we're doing some great things development wise and raising money in this environment, I'm most proud of that selflessness. Thanks.
Awesome. Addie?
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to be here as well. And Howard, that's great to hear. Here at Kentucky Wesleyan, we recently acquired a church right near our campus, which really expanded our campus footprint. And that's allowed us to have more in-person classes and have more organizations get together, socially distanced. And so we're still trying to have some sort of normalcy during this time. And without that addition to our campus, we definitely couldn't do it.
Great. Mahmoud?
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to my fellow panelists and those joining us. Last June of 2019, the University of Idaho had a groundbreaking ceremony for a new basketball arena that we're excited about, a transformational facility that's going to be state-of-the-art and a true gem to our campus. We are on schedule, on track to open that up a year from now, fall of 2021, and home to men's and women's basketball, a hub for local sports, concerts, lectures, community events, et cetera. What's interesting about the facility that we're proud of most is the state of Idaho relies on about $2.2 billion when it comes to our Idaho forest products. And the facility itself is Idaho Wood in partnership with Idaho Forest Products and various entities and organizations. So the wood was harvested on University of Idaho land and will be a stellar component of our campus for years to come.
Very cool. I like that. Tatiana?
Thanks, Mike. Nice to see everybody here. Very excited to be a part of this. Kind of similar to Mahmoud, we are very excited here at the Academy. We were starting to come into the end of our capital campaign as COVID struck, and a lot of things have been put on hold, as I can imagine with everyone, but very excited to say that we've had significant progress on capital projects, including two of our biggest ones. So just this September, about a month ago, we officially dedicated our restored golf course, and we're able to open that facility back up. It's an incredible, beautiful project that's taken a number of years and just looks really amazing. And soon here we'll be opening our Center for Student Athletes, our Physical Mission Center. So another big project coming to a close, and exciting to see some progress on projects despite a lot of things being at a standstill.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. A lot of positivity going on all y'all's campuses, and that's awesome. So kind of what we're going to do now, we're going to get into the topic here a little bit, and we're going to stay the first bit here really with the donor cycle, right? So we're going to touch on, prospecting, cultivation, solicitation, and stewardship for a block of time, and obviously how do we engage folks during these times. So, Tatiana, I'm going to start with you, and maybe if you could kind of touch on prospecting for us, really, in planning this. You guys are doing some really unique things at Navy. And that's something that's important to what we're trying to do, right? We're always trying to find the next person, always trying to get the new money, the new donor, whatever it may be, which obviously is challenging during this time. But please share what cool things you guys are doing there at Navy.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. I think for a lot of us, right, we look at the fall as kind of the opportunity for new acquisition, because there's just so much action usually going on and so many organic opportunities to engage with folks, be it game day Saturday at football stadiums or whatever it is, with a lot of competition. And the spring is so heavily focused on renewals for a lot of us that, the fall really becomes that opportunity to truly cultivate and prospect new folks. So it's been interesting doing that all virtually. What I will say is, we've been very focused at Navy of being intentional about, with a lack of organic, true person-to-person opportunities to get in front of folks, how do we translate that engagement online and meet people where they're at during COVID, which is very virtual, very digital, very social media heavy. So our department has been doing a really incredible job. Our sports information folks have really pivoted incredibly well. Our marketing staff, same, to put out engaging content on social media, reinvigorate our website, reinvigorate our mobile app, which we really didn't use to this extent before COVID. And now we've made it a prominent feature of our plan. And so with that, from a prospecting standpoint, it's allowed us to just have so much more data now in terms of how people are engaging. So much of fundraising is relying on that person-to-person, hand-to-hand contact for cultivation to really understand affinity. And I think we've used data traditionally in athletics pretty well in terms of identifying capacity for donors over the years, wealth engine screenings and things like that. But to date, it's been really hard to find performance indicators through data for affinity. And now we have a whole new way of doing that because we can see people engaging with our content since we're increasing our amount of content and our quality of content online. So people are interacting with stories on the web, people are interacting with the app, people are interacting with social media. And in turn, we have more information than ever about how people are engaging with us, what content actually is speaking to them, what's engaging them the right way. And so we've tried to use that at Navy. A good example, Fanatics has been a partner of ours with our merchandise store. And so now with the mobile app during game days, during the game, third quarter, we send out a push notification with a Fanatics code, a discount code. I know a lot of folks in schools are doing that, but when I look at it from a data standpoint, I can see people using that merchandise code to purchase. And what that tells me is they have skin in the game, right? They're willing to put money on the line and spend money on Navy athletics. They're still watching and engaging from home, right? They're following along. And most importantly, they're choosing to use Navy athletics for more than just the on-field product, but also as their kind of third screen experience. So they're interacting with the app during the game in addition to watching on TV. Those three kind of triggers show me that they have an affinity for Navy athletics way more than liking a social media post might. So this new data that we're able to kind of track and utilize, we use that now to trigger an additional follow-ups, high-value web tracking pages, just a lot of different things that we've never been able to do because we haven't really had the traffic on those digital and social platforms. So we're using a lot of that data to engage and prospect in new ways for our annual giving officers. That's been pretty cool and successful for us.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are doing some smart things there, getting into data, and I like that. I think prospecting is different for all of us, right? One of the things that I miss, being, at a tailgate or interacting with a donor and you get introduced to someone that you never met, and you got that business card in your pocket and you go back to the office or whatever, you look up and, they're an alum, maybe they've never given, but they've got capacity. I think we're missing out on that touch point piece right now, but certainly you and technology, I think that's going to play a role with us now. And obviously I think when we get back to normal. Switching gears a little bit to cultivation, right? So we found them, found the prospect, we got this person ready to go. Mahmood and Addie, I'm gonna, come to you guys here. With this one, the challenge of finding these prospects is one thing, but then how do we move them along the cultivation cycle in a remote setting, right? How do we get them from just warming up to us, just being introduced to us, learning about what it is that we're doing on our campuses, and getting them to that point of an ask?
Yeah, so we were challenged early on by our athletic director who realized our coaches were going from working 12 to 16 hours a day to basically not having student athletes on campus, having competitions, kind of your traditional practices, team meetings, et cetera. So utilizing her line of thinking and her leadership, we basically asked our coaches to get engaged in engaging with donors. And so within the first 2 weeks of the pandemic being out there, known to us late March, early April, we were able to engage with over 800 donors. And if that was coaches placing phone calls, sending text messages, emails, the traditional handwritten note, and the focus was just checking on the donors and making sure that they're doing okay, that they're safe and sound, and having that humane experience with them. And those conversations allowed for the coaches to build relationships with the donors, get to know them personally, and vice versa. So now it was no longer just, Coach, I see you on the sidelines of a game. Now I know you and know a little about you. So that also brought forward terminology and thoughts that we hadn't heard for a long time, furloughs and pay cuts. And so then we realized, okay, things are changing and they're rapidly changing compared to let's say the dot-com burst in the early 2000s, or the housing bubble crash or the housing market crash, excuse me, in the late 2000s. This was moving a lot faster. So our approach mostly has been checking in with them, making sure that they're doing okay, making sure their families are doing okay, seeking how we can help them. And then on the back end, engaging them with opportunities, particularly on the annual fund, and ensuring that we're continuously keeping those that have been close to us still close to us, and finding opportunities to get new individuals involved. Couple ideas to share with the group. We were able to engage some of our former student athletes, prominent former student athletes for us, through public service announcements where they talked about just kind of the CDC protocols and local health district protocols, talked about where they are now in their own respective lives. And then at the end, a soft ask of saying, our student athletes need us now more than ever. Please make a contribution. We also looked at different opportunities when it comes to our engagement, either through fan polls or quizzes, or going back in history and pulling some ball games out of the vault, just keeping the Idaho Vandals out there and top of the mind awareness. Selfishly for us, it comes down to top of the mind awareness and making sure that they don't forget about the university during these tough times.
Great point. Addie?
Yes, and similar to what Mahmoud was saying, we did a lot of checking in on our donors, trying to make sure they're doing okay and see how they're doing. And now moving forward, we're launching a Panther Porch Tour. And with this, we're trying to, identify significant groups of donors in surrounding areas. And fortunately for us, over 50% of our alumni live within an hour of our school. And that really is going to allow us to, if they're comfortable and willing, go meet them outside, have a little porch visit, and see how they're doing, check in. And with this, we're going to bring our president and athletic director and just try to introduce to new people, and then re-engage with donors that we haven't been able to see for a long time now. And so we're really looking forward to doing that.
Addie, is that something where the donors have volunteered their homes, or is this something that you've had to go out and ask, friends, or maybe it's board trustee or someone close or board member to get a venue for that?
So these are more one-on-one visits. And so we're really going directly to these people's houses, obviously, if they're comfortable and wanting to have that interaction, or to meet our president or re-engage with our athletic director. And so we don't necessarily need a venue, but if they're willing to meet us, today it's 80 degrees outside here in Owensboro. And so we're hoping that good weather continues so we can keep that moving forward.
Awesome. Great ideas. Thank you for sharing. And obviously the next step would be a solicitation, right? And so we prospected, we cultivated, we kept people engaged, and ultimately our job is to raise money, right? And so Howard, just thinking about how we get that done, and obviously an ask is a very personal thing, right? It's a very, whether it's one-on-one, or maybe you have an ED or a coach, it's a small group, right? It's a very personal thing, whether it's in someone's home or a coach's office. How are you guys shifting gears a little bit and still asking for dollars?
Yeah. Well, the middle of March came and our worlds all came crashing down, right? So, and I admit it, I'm old school. I like a handshake. I like to hug. I like to I love the process and the people. And so I was just a fish out of water as our chief development officer. Luckily, I've got a bunch of folks on our team that are young and know that we've got to do something and keep the show going. And so we realized we had a lot of folks that were primed and ready for ask, but hadn't heard from us. It was March, hadn't heard from us. Was it March, April, May, June, right? We started actually taking a look at yearly goals, because July 1 would have been a reflection. And we thought, what do we do? We know people are incredibly visual, but yet we're in this Zoom format. So we created, and we knew and this is important, we knew we had to reintroduce the projects within our campaign, because it had been 3 months, people's lives had changed, the world had changed, and they just maybe have forgotten. And so we've got several facility campaigns going on right now. One's our basketball facility. So Kathleen Knight in Chicago, Zach Goins, and some others. So let's take a shot at this in terms of packaging something together that would really work as a cultivation, a steward, or a solicitation, depending on how we customize this. Dana, do you want to share the Ubben basketball? Deal there. And so this is what we created, really just a summary of, it's a document really that can guide you to ask, guide you along that path to asking, but it does a really good job, I think, of summarizing our project. And it's a really good idea. I would suggest it for anyone to put together. It's 1 or 2 pages, but just it could work as a document that guides the conversation, that introduces the conversation, or closes the deal, so to speak. So if you go through the next page or so there, Dana, again, we restated our vision to people. We wanted to talk about this year's team. We highly anticipate, who doesn't, right, that our team's going to be pretty good this year. We really wanted to leverage that. We knew we didn't have much time. We knew the season would get started. We've got a couple NBA guys that are coming back, folks projected to be in the NBA. They're coming back. We thought this was our window, but we knew this new environment wasn't going to change. And so we put together this document, states our goals. Our athletic director will guide some of these calls if it's an ask. Each gift officer can get this customized for themselves and make changes themselves, many of them, to guide the conversation for cultivation. But the primary use for this is an ask. Dana, I think there's one more page that we get into the design. Is there another page? And then you can see we're intentional about our gift table there. Like, we want to let folks know about our progress, what we need, and what our progress is towards that goal. And that what we've done, I think we've been thoughtful in this, is many times it's not an ask, but we'll lay that out and give people a chance to respond, pinpointing that we've got some work to do in those areas. Would you want to help us fill the $150,000 area, the $1 million area? And this can change based on the project. It can be $5,000, just depending on what our initiative is, but it's been really, really helpful. Thanks, Dana.
Howard, I'm curious, obviously we talk about our comfort level with asking this way, right, a virtual way or whatever. I'm curious, have you gotten any feedback, from your donors, whether it be leading up to this or afterwards, saying, hey, this was great, or I appreciate this, or, I'd much rather have done it in person, anything like that?
Yeah, you know what? We haven't. We've had some success on some gifts. I think everyone has that, through this, but we've been more success than I thought. One of the things we are working on right now, Zach Goins on my team runs our campaigns. And so I've asked him to put together a questionnaire. We've got all this time to think, and we've never really surveyed, I use that word loosely, right? Surveyed or inquired our donors on how we're doing. How did they, especially our major gift donors, what do they think of the process, right, of getting asked? And I think, Mike, that's a good point. Can we be specific to the Zoom in this new environment, or in general? Like, what do we do good? So many of these folks are involved in other philanthropic organizations. Many of them, you guys know, they're on boards. So they're somehow involved in fundraising and think of themselves as fundraisers too, because they do it for their kids' school or some other organization. And so I just want to find out, and we as a team want to find out, how are we doing? What did they feel? Grade us on some of these techniques. So it's a great question, and we're trying to put that together.
Howard, we've had a little bit of success with that. I guess it would probably been about the middle of the summer. I was having a one-on-one conversation with probably what you would call a professional philanthropist, right? Someone on our campus who gives to a lot of different things, and they're involved with a lot of different boards and charities and so forth. And his message to me was, don't stop asking. Don't stop the process. And he made a comment to me, and it kind of hit home, and it's been in my mind since. He said, everyone's checking in. Right? Everyone's checking in. How's everything going? What's going on with the kids? What's going on with life? But ultimately, they're expecting us to move along, right? And I think what you have there, I think is a pretty, I think with your slides there were perfect. We're still out there trying to raise money for a project, and kudos to you guys.
Thank you.
Well, great. I think kind of the last piece we want to touch on before we shift gears a bit is obviously stewardship. Right. we need to thank our folks. We need to thank the people that are doing these wonderful things for us, for our student athletes, and doing things on our campus. So really, this is going to be for the whole group. Really, how is all of this, affected your stewardship, right? I know for us, it's taking a, signed letter, thank you letter, from our athletic director or from myself, something that's online, right? So we've outsourced and we brought on a technology piece that's made us better. It's made us more efficient. It's ultimately going to probably save us some money. Now, listen, maybe down the road, it's not that touch point that you want, or that note that you want. So I think we need to be smart there. But again, how has stewardship changed on all your campus? Addie, you want to start with you?
Sure. So for us, we've definitely kept kind of going the same way we were going, but added more pieces, I guess, ways to thank people. And something that I kind of took on when I had a little more downtime was creating endowment reports. And so with that, we hadn't sent those out for a couple of years. It just kind of got lost in the shuffle, in the mix. And so it's something I thought would be a nice touch to people who hadn't had that update in a couple of years. And so just trying to find ways to, keep people informed and really thank them for that gift that does keep on giving when I have time. And then another initiative we kind of had on social media was called Panther Positivity. And not necessarily, I guess, towards just donors, but just trying to increase positivity of things happening on campus that our alumni, that our supporters are doing, and just spread that, which I think could be seen as a stewardship piece as well.
Awesome. Tatiana?
Yeah, so similarly, we moved our thank you acknowledgement process kind of digital, finding a couple different ways to do that, and had a lot of success there. Similarly, moving things digital, we saw a big increase in the quality and volume of content coming out from Sports Information and just web stories, a lot of really cool donor-centric stories. Resources that are now available because there's less competitions have made it a little bit easier to get some donor-centric content created. So we started doing donor spotlights, moved those to video segments. So really cool video pieces about our donors, able to share them through newsletters that we send out, post them on social media, on the website. And then from a capital standpoint, I mentioned we're finishing up our new Center for Student Athletes, and unfortunately, we've had to postpone the actual formal dedication event. The facility, the way it is, it's this beautiful museum style space that's very interactive. So to do a virtual dedication really wouldn't do justice to the project. So we've decided to move the event to the spring, but obviously we want to go back to all those donors who contributed to the project and named spaces and really make sure that they know an update on the project timeline. They know that, we haven't stalled in finishing the project, and also thank them for their support kind of before, not make them wait till the spring, right? We don't want to keep it in the can. So we've been creating these personalized video messages for each donor with an opening message from our AD directly to the donor. So Howard, thank you so much for your support. Take a look at the building, take a look at your named space, visuals of their space, their recognition. So really quick, 45-second, 1-minute videos, but something so that they feel very special, very connected, and hear directly from our AD about their impact without having to, again, wait till the spring to see the full space and the full breadth of the project in person.
I'm writing that down. That's good. Yeah, because we're in a similar situation here. We're bringing facilities online, and we're trying to be creative in that space, and that's really good. Mahmoud?
Yeah, similar to Tatiana, we're taking advantage of social media and not having sports this fall. We're kind of coming up with our own weekly student athletes of the week, a male and a female, and opportunity for us to showcase who they are and their background and their goals for the upcoming season. But a component of that, and thanks to our communications team and our marketing and fan engagement department for coming up with this idea, was at the end of every interview asking them what their scholarship means to them and what it means to be a University of Idaho Vandal. And so that brings it forward to the donors watching that, saying, okay, my annual gift or my major gift to the university is paying dividends. Our athletic director sends out a monthly newsletter to all of our donors, and so we're able to embed some of those videos into her newsletter as well.
Howard?
Yeah, I think for us, we do a really, really good job, like most places, of stewarding the hell out of the top 5%, 10% that are putting names on buildings and stuff. Boy, we're really good. However, and my staff's on me all the time that we've got to get better and a better system for everyone else, including, that would include me and my wife and 3 kids, right? I mean, so without having in our conference, the Big Ten, without having fans there, right? How do you give them access? I mean, there's the core of our fandom alumni base, which are 2 separate things, right? Are going to be without being able to do what they've done, many of them, their whole lives. And it's go tailgate, it's go to the games, it's go have food before and after, party, go to the suites, whatever all that is on a particular campus. And it's no different depending on the size. And so we came up with something called iFund, which is really specific on our end, because it's the athletic advancement or athletic development office, which is our office. And it's iFund All Access. And it really is an opportunity to give donors something in place of this void, right? Dana, and I'm a real visual guy, so I have a lot of friends, including my wife, that would be shocked that I had like visuals here. But I'm not smart enough to talk without some aid probably. So we won't play the video, but you can go scroll down there. And this is just an introduction to what iFund All Access will be. And each week, different segments will get different videos. We're going to have on game day a virtual stadium club. Stadium club, something we have for our donors of a certain level, 2 hours before game. We're going to do that virtually. Wish us good luck. I can't imagine anybody wanting to be on Zoom any more than they have to, but I think there'll be some folks that would want to hear some former Illini speak. So we've got one of our former student athletes and works in our office in charge of that. It's going to do a great job, Kevin Mitchell. If you can keep going. So that's virtual stadium club and the lineup. This is unique. Our premium seating folks came up with it, and that's under the development umbrella. We've got a corporate sponsorship with support producers, right? So we've got with Learfield to do something in that sponsorship. So we created a real brief food show. So here's your tailgate. You can't formally tailgate the stadium, but the parties you have, Addie, on your porch, right, or at home, here's a recipe. And we have our chef for premium seating, and he does a little cooking show. It lasts 2 or 3 minutes. If you're lucky enough to go while they're filming it, you get to eat and drink, which I love. But it really, and we just distributed this, all this content yesterday. And so we put together, you can keep going, a pretty complex calendar of everything that we're doing in a particular week. So one of the touches is going to be a video from our athletic director. You'll get Stadium Club. I just got off the phone with our equipment manager. We're using ThinkView, and our equipment manager is going to go in and always get a shot of the locker room and do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and then get that shot back over to our group that we can then distribute on game day. People get a little frustrated with me because I keep adding things, but I really want to deliver on this notion of all access. To me, that means you're seeing something you wouldn't normally see. And I'm really uptight about, are we able to deliver that? So I keep adding, I think, to nauseum to some people, like, could we do this? Could we do that? And we play in 24 hours. But so that's our way in terms of stewardship to really fill that void for game day for not those $100,000 plus donors, but folks like myself that are just wanting to touch the team and be a part of game day. Thank you, Dana.
That's great, Howard. And we're trying to replace tailgates and access, and it looks like you guys are doing a great job there. I'm gonna stay with you here as we kind of shift gears a bit to some topical questions. Really, we've talked about the base here, right? We talked about how to keep people engaged, how to get people in the prospect pipeline, how do we thank people, whatever it may be. I guess I'm curious, Howard, how are you keeping the coach and the AD, connected to that 5%, right? How do you keep that, because you're not seeing them, right? They're not coming to suites, they're not coming to Courtside, whatever it may be, but, how are you guys keeping your high profile coaches and your athletic director, connected to your top 5?
We do something every month. It's a call sheet for our coaches. And this isn't across the boards probably could be more consistent. I think the track coach would tell you, if he was on here right now, would say, what the hell are you talking about call sheet? But our football coach would know all about it. So we should do a better job there. So we're doing that where there's constant calls and contacts from them. Something we've done that's been really helpful, Mike, you were saying you were doing the same thing, is we put together, it started with our campaign committee, which was 6 to 8 people. And it's just grown into, now we call it our Illini leaders. It's grown so much, we're not sure what even the criteria is anymore. But it's several people that we consider probably lifetime giving of $500,000 or more in our place. Again, we're different. All of our institutions are different, but the only difference is the zero on the ledgers, right? We're all trying to do the same thing. And so we do a call where we've asked our athletic director, it's a Zoom, and he really needs to pull back the curtain and talk about candidly some things that we feel, and provide some access to our top 5 percenters on all issues, from COVID to coaching to transfer. Some of the national issues that are going on with name, image, likeness, all those kinds of things. And those have been really good. And I will tell you, we've been thoughtful enough that we've just put it out there. Like, look, we've got budget deficit. We've got returning spring student athletes. We got about, for us this past year, $500,000 more in scholarship costs because the NCAA did a great favor of permitting these folks to come back, but didn't give us any chance to pay for it. So, I call that job security, Mike. Yet another initiative to push. But so those calls have been great for us, and I'd encourage people to, whether that's 1 or 2 people or 25, to take some of those and be thoughtful about how you approach those.
That's great. Thanks, Howard. And I'll throw this out to the group. Obviously we're in challenging times, and for our campus, we've had some things put on hold, right? Whether it be a project or an initiative. We've had some things being pushed forward too, right? I mean, it hasn't all just been stopped. But, I guess I'm curious, some successes and maybe best practices, but how are you communicating and how are you engaging those donors that maybe you are halfway in the middle of a fundraising campaign, or you're about to break ground and that got pushed? Maybe just share some, stories from your campuses of things that you guys have done to engage folks that are, probably looking for you guys to push forward, even though during these times you can't. I'll start with you, Tatiana.
So it's been a little interesting, I'll be honest. We have thankfully not had to put any projects on hold or priorities on hold to date. But as I'm sure all of us are looking at, unrestricted support is more important now than ever, as we kind of look at, how much COVID testing costs and all these other things that have come up. So we are coming out of a campus-wide capital campaign. We've extended it because of COVID, but we are still kind of in the tail end of the campaign. And I think if anything, it's helped us kind of reinvigorate the message. We talked about this, as a group, but I think the hardest part is finding a way to continue to push forward with priorities that are more restricted giving, like capital projects or, sports specific initiatives that are going on, but still balance that line of messaging to say, yes, this project is necessary. And you see, a new building coming up, but that doesn't mean that we don't have, deficits happening on the unrestricted side. So just because a building is being built, that doesn't mean that the need is any less. And really educating people on the difference between restricted and unrestricted giving. So that's been a huge priority for us in our messaging. But, a part of our campaign was a 5-year initiative for unrestricted donors. So getting unrestricted donors to sign a 5-year pledge. And with the extension of this and the added kind of emphasis on unrestricted giving because of the urgency of COVID needs, we've seen like a reinvigoration of that campaign and its success. So I think on that end, it's been really positive. Because there are more people understanding this unrestricted need, and we've been able to extend the campaign to give them the recognition that they would have gotten from that 5-year initiative. So it's been nice to kind of marry those two, the need with the ongoing campaign.
That's great. I'm going to jump into the question and answer here, because I think it was relevant to what you just said. Has anyone created, a specific COVID fund, right? And just curious, how receptive have donors been, and maybe what's that message been, right? For us here, we're about to do that, and we're going to be very honest with with the costs of doing business during this time, whether it be, additional staff, increased testing, obviously, those types of things. So, I'll throw it out there to the group, where have we all seen some successes in terms of a COVID relief fund? Mahmood, anything?
On the athletic side, we haven't done anything specific for a COVID relief fund just because our scholarship fund is our priority and continues to be our priority and our main focus on the annual fund side. Our university's done a nice job with crowdfunding campaigns for food pantries and done a nice job with raising funds that way. But I can't speak to specific to athletics.
That's a great question. Getting back into our agenda here, and Addie, I'm going to ask you, during our planning, and you made mention of volunteers and people getting on board and so forth, but how are you guys handling communicating to board members or volunteers? How are you engaging them during this time? Obviously that's a very important group for all of us to understand, but you guys are doing some unique things there.
Yes, definitely. And so our last board meeting was virtual, as I'm sure most people's board meetings are right now. And in that meeting, our board of trustees really wanted to know how they could help, what could they do right now during this time. And annually, we still have a student-led phone-a-thon. We have about 200 donors a year who just really, this is their preferred method of giving. They really enjoy receiving that phone call and that update from the college. And so with that, we asked if our board of trustees members would like to take that on, because we aren't able to do that student-led phone-a-thon right now with COVID restrictions and making sure everything is safe for our students. And they were all about it. And so it was really exciting to see that they would love to, make those phone calls and just connect with our donors. And then in addition to the normal group that we have, we've also added some other donors and supporters who would appreciate that connection with the board of trustee. And we're really looking forward to how all of those phone calls go. And then we followed up, we sent out some stationery to the volunteers, and then they'll send them back and we'll send them on out for them. So that was just a really cool way that they wanted to get involved. And we're excited for that outreach.
Awesome. Jumping into the chat here, and this is a good one. And I think it probably relates to all of us here. We're obviously talking a lot about technology. We're on it right now. We're able to do this, because of technology. What do you do with donors that aren't that tech savvy, right? What do we do, if you call in Joe Donor and say, hey, I'd love to get on a Zoom and connect with you, and maybe that's not something that they're warming up to. Any suggestions to throw out there in terms of best practices? But you need to spend time with them. And what do you do? How do you do it?
It's going to sound counterintuitive because my suggestion is to meet them on mobile, and you're saying they're not tech savvy, but follow me here. There are a lot of opportunities. We've taken advantage of some of the text tools that we have. I've been in institutions that didn't have budgets for text tools, and we've used kind of emergency text tools that you would have for like a stadium emergency. So you may have those tools even if you don't realize you have a text tool available to you. But again, it's counterintuitive, but if you send a text message, which almost everyone has a phone that can receive text messages with the link, it's really good because they can just click on it and go right to the page you're looking for them to find. Whereas if you let them find on their own via Facebook or social media or web, they're probably not going to find it. But this day and age, even our older folks know how text messages work. And again, it's right there. It's already there. They just have to click and open it. And it forces them to be mobile and digital, but not have to go find, a web page or a social media post that might be buried or harder for them to navigate to.
Anyone else? I'll jump in. I think it's a unique way just to kind of ask people how they feel comfortable, right? I mean, do they feel good about a one-on-one visit, right? Obviously, if somebody is distance from your campus, we're not allowed to get on airplanes here. And so obviously if I'm trying to get to California or Florida, then obviously there's not that one-on-one, in-person touch, but it's been phone, right? Hey, Joe Donor, I want to give you an update what's going on around here, whether it be about a project, what we're doing with student athletes, whatever it may be. I found it very easy And most of the other folks are, yeah, just call them, right? Let's get on the phone. Let's schedule this thing out. And so, although I would prefer this, right, because you're actually going to see somebody and you're going to interact that way, but definitely, ask the question. That's how people want to be engaged. So that's a good one. Quick question, just jumping back into, actually, another one in the chat I think is relevant. And we've touched on it a little bit, but what strategies are you using to close major gifts if your teams are not playing? I'll throw that out there for the panel.
Yeah, I've been trying something here of late that's been successful, surprisingly, and it's more one-on-one if the proposal's already out there and you're just kind of sitting on an island and being ghosted by the donor, potential major donor. And on Friday afternoon, I'll just shoot them an email, and it's 3 questions, and the first 2 questions are extremely personable to them. How was your fishing trip last week? Are you gearing up for ski season? And the third question is, have we provided you enough information to fulfill, gift X or to close gift X? And what additional information do you need from me? I'll be on standby until I hear from you. And so now it's kind of put them in a spot where they have to respond, because I'm telling them that I'm on standby. I can't move forward without you taking the next step. And what's funny is the responses you get on the first 2 questions are very personable. So now you're getting more information. And the third one is insightful, because it's, you're exactly right. I just haven't had a chance to look at the proposal, or I need to go home and share this with my spouse over the weekend. And, done it for about 5 weeks. 3 out of 5 gifts have been closed. So still short as far as my strategy goes of saying, hey, this is the absolute success, but it's worked of late. And for some reason, it seems like that Friday afternoon component is a perfect time frame, just because folks aren't doing the traditional happy hour dinner with family and friends, going out of town. So Friday afternoon, they may be looking forward to that email and looking to do something. And it could be making a gift to their favorite university.
Switching gears, Howard, you have anything, or we ready to move on?
I would say that, I appreciate it. And I think we all recognize it's tough to do this work without games being played. But I do think that we have to be careful about letting that affect. We've had some really good success in, maybe it's not always yes, right? Maybe you don't secure the gift, but you have some really productive gift conversations that maybe lead to a pending gift, or maybe you just, the answer is no, but you found something out that allows you to move on and from that. So I don't think we want to let that, stop us from moving forward as if we were playing. I do think that for us, and we need to do a better job of this here probably, but changing that threshold for who has access. Generally that's whatever you define as your big donors, your major gift donors, your principal gift donors on your campus. I think now these times require, maybe you reduce that threshold a little bit, maybe the basketball coach and/or AD and whatever your VIPs would be on that campus are talking to folks that are at a different threshold, meaning lower than you typically would have, just to, it helps to the cultivation. Maybe you're got to have a built-in excuse, right? You don't have to ask someone too quick now, and you can help move those people along and cultivate them a little bit more by giving a little more access earlier to people than you would have. So.
Great. Thanks, Howard. The subject I'm going to stick with, and we just got a good question in the chat, and it's relevant to this, is, this idea of keeping collected revenue, right? Whether it be, renewals in the spring, we play something in the fall, right? You renew something in the summer, maybe you play basketball in the winter. So, curious, from a donor engagement, maybe even a communication standpoint, Tatiana, what are you doing at Navy, or what did you guys do? Because again, you can't have full stadiums. We don't have, we're not having full parking lots and things like that. But what are you guys doing to communicate that ultimately we still need the revenue.
Yeah, so we were kind of in a unique situation last year. So we do the cycle of you renew, this year for next year. And so with us planning to open this season against Notre Dame in Ireland this year, there's a lot more that goes into allocation of tickets and things like that. So we started our renewal process earlier than we traditionally do by a couple of months, which meant when COVID hit in March and we were all homebound, we actually already secured the majority of our renewals, including our gifts. Which meant there's even more revenue now that we want to make sure stays secured, right? So for our ticket holders, we started, we kind of launched an all-in campaign. All-in is a motto of our football team. And we leveraged that kind of saying to dictate some options to our folks, similar to a lot of institutions are doing, giving our season ticket holders the option of donating their season tickets and parking, crediting it to next year, or asking for a refund. And then at the time we're going game by game, so we have folks as well an option to retain their tickets and kind of see what happens and stay with us. Part of the carrot and incentive for donating was a nameplate to be placed in our brigade student section, so where our midshipmen stand during the game. And part of this kind of tailed into our messaging, right? Our entire brigade of midshipmen, or our student body, is back on the yard. They're here. They're being very strict in terms of bubbling and being safe, and they're incredible young men and women who serve our country. So it is an easy message to explain to donors that, by not coming to the game, you allow a safe game day experience for our brigade of midshipmen to attend. And these last 2 home games, we've been able to have the brigade there, which is really important. And so I think it's a hard sell, but it does make sense for a lot of season ticket holders who really understand that that's kind of the sacrifice they're making. And so having that nameplate go in the student section with the all-in logo, their name kind of in perpetuity for the future, people who stepped up during the time of COVID, has been a really good incentive. So we've seen a lot of folks step up and donate, or at least credit to next year through that campaign. It's been pretty successful. Going game by game makes it a little bit harder, but it's definitely overall been a good source of messaging for us. And to that point, it has been interesting, right? If they're donating their tickets, does that count toward their renewal for next year? How does that work? A lot of nuances there. So we have not created like a COVID relief fund specifically, but we did make sure that folks know if they're donating their tickets or parking, that's a separate fund than their normal annual gift, so that we're not kind of cannibalizing a potential annual gift for next year. That was important messaging that we wanted to communicate.
Some great. Howard, Mahmoud, anything to share? The one thing I'll say is we're right square in the middle of this as it relates to our basketball, right? And we've done a lot of best practices and who's doing this really well. And the one thing that we found that if you can make a one-on-one touch point in this space with someone that's either got a per seat gift on the books, or parking, or tickets, or whatever it may be, that your chances of keeping or reinvesting, or however you term what you're trying to do, is significantly higher than letting them just log into their account, self-select refund, self-select push forward, or whatever. Ask me in a month how it went, because we're currently doing it right now. But I think we're having some success there, because again, it's the one-on-one touch, right? And we can talk about why it's important to reinvest, why it's important to stick with us, why it's important to support our student athletes. So that's the one thing I'll tell you, is that across the board, we're going that direction. Again, I'll let you know how it goes here, once we get farther down the line. But we're seeing successes, where we're getting wins because people understand what we're trying to say, and it's working. So, Howard.
Michael, that happened so quick for us around football. We've got the season ticket, of course. We've got the premium seating, and then within that are parking benefits and what have you. And I'll tell you, I think I shared this with you on the phone, but I just wish I could have those months back, because I think we could have been more thoughtful in the message that we produced, to have some of those conversations. Maybe it could be that maybe we wouldn't have kept any of the revenue, but the other conversations we could have had and found out some things, and just, expressed our appreciation for the fact that they get those tickets. And I think we missed an opportunity there. So good luck with what you're doing. But I would just tell people to, be prepared. Basketball's, I think we kind of know where that's going to end up for us in the Big Ten if football's any sign, and in the states that we live in are any sign. So we need to start preparing that communication and that case for support, probably a lot bit better than we did for football.
This one concerns me because with FCS playing in the spring, we basically have shifted all the fall dollars to the spring. If you don't have a spring season, then the right thing to do is shift everything to the following fall, right? Fall of 2021. So it's concerning that there may be a possibility where we won't be able to accrue revenue during our renewal campaign in the spring. The other thing that I think about is the renewal cycle usually starts in February, early March. Well, that's when our season's taking place. What's that going to look like from an educational standpoint to the donor, so we don't confuse them saying, okay, we're not talking about spring 2021, we're talking about fall of 2021. And then when will we know what that fall 2021 schedule looks like? Because obviously the season ticket holder / donor will make a commitment based on their schedule, their availability, price points, et cetera. So extremely fluid, right? This whole process has been fluid, but it is concerning to me what that does look like from an FCS standpoint.
Yeah, that seems problematic for you, right? To get that done, organized. Good luck. Shifting gears a little bit back to our agenda here. Addie, I'm curious. Obviously, you've been in your role. Just getting into your role, right? You're just getting into a development role, getting into a front-facing development role with all of this kicking on. I think getting into a development role, a development officer is difficult to begin with, right? I mean, you're really starting from scratch with relationships, and that can be hard. How has the first 5-6 months been when really you're trying to do something without all your engagement tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So I onboarded in June and our whole campus was virtual, still working from home. But fortunately, I joined a great team and they really helped me feel included and understand more about what we're doing here and how things are going. And then with that, when I reached out to people across campus, their schedules were a little slower. And so I had that time to, Zoom or call with coaches or with administrators and just hear build upon the institutional knowledge that I had from my time as a student athlete here. And so from that piece, that was a great onboarding process. I had more time to get to know people across campus and what their needs were. And then transitioning into more of, okay, how do I engage with our donors? How do I get out and meet people? It was really hard. It's still pretty hard, but fortunately I've had some great phone calls. And with that, I've been able to ask if, hey, can I stop by your house? I have this coffee mug I'd love to drop off. And so if they're comfortable and, if they're open to me even stopping by with, masked up and drop that off, it gives me a few minutes just to get to know them. And as I mentioned before, a lot of our supporters and donors are local, which has made that doable for me. And so anytime we've had some stewardship pieces that could go out, instead of just mailing them all off, I kind of took it upon myself to separate the local ones or the ones that I could drive to and then make that phone call and just ask, would you be comfortable if I stop by? And if not, can I just drop this off at your front porch? And so with that, it was just a good way to have a nice conversation, kind of like a soft introduction and then a little face-to-face time.
No, that's smart. I think that's something I learned early on is if you've got something to give them, then they're pretty easy to get a hold of, right? Or at least accept a meeting or at least see what you got, or you know what I mean? So yeah, that's a good tool, and especially if you can be out and about, right? If you're not restricted and people are comfortable then saying, hey, I'm going to be on your side of the town, or I'm going to be out and about in your community visiting with folks, and again, I've got something for you. That's a smart tactic for sure. And I'm going to stay with that little onboarding piece there and come to you, Howard. Something that we had mentioned in getting ready for this is this idea of professional development, right? Like again, there is some downtime, right? I mean, that is a real thing for all of us. But I know you guys are doing something unique at Illinois to again, just as we can all just get better.
Yeah, yeah. Our university has an agreement with Plus Delta, which just is a great consulting group for advancement. And Mahmoud, I love your idea because much of the Plus Delta philosophy is this idea of radical candor. How do you have conversations? I'll shorten this up. How do you have conversations with people that induces gift conversations and cultivation and move them along that continuum, right? And so our folks, we've taken some time with all the downtime and have Zoom calls. Our team puts it together as a way to change our culture. So we actually practice our email writing, our qualification email writings and phone calls, and our meetings. So we call it role play sessions, and everybody's a part of our metrics now. I want you to attend a couple of those done within just our advancement shop a month. And it's gone really well. I can see where it's benefited us. And it's interesting because there's the idea of you and I, Mahmoud, out to dinner, right? And having a conversation. And then there's the Zoom thing. And I think those really, for me, are two different things. What's my best way to engage you like this? It's much different than maybe face-to-face. And so we're starting to practice some of those things. Number one, because it's good, we need to sharpen our tools. And number two, we have the time to actually stop and do that. So professional development for us has been very, it's an inward thing for the most part with the hopes of getting better outwardly. But it needs to be like we no longer call, this is part of the Plus Delta curriculum. And this is sounding like a plug for Plus Delta. There is no check in the mail. But we no longer call visits, we call meetings, right? And that kind of changes the whole deal for us. And to give you a little background, when I have a visit, for me, I would spend 30 minutes talking about who the starting quarterback is, another 15 minutes talking about whether this kid was going to be recruited here or not, why we miss him. And then you got 15 minutes left. And then they got to talk about myself, right? And they got to talk about themselves. And then you're out of an hour, right? So, but if I know I'm going into a meeting, I know, hey, I've got an hour set for this. Do you feel the same? You got an hour? Yeah, we both agree on that. I sent you this. These are the things we're going to cover today. And we know that we don't want those things to sound so formal, right? How do you put that in your own way, Michael, your own way, Tatiana, right? How do you unformalize that, but keep it organized? I've said a lot. I've probably not reflected Plus Delta really well, but we're just rethinking all those things, right, that allow us to get to a gift conversation in a more efficient and a better way. And so take the time to do that if you get a chance.
That's smart. And good advice. Thank you, Howard. Jumping into the chat here, just curious, and this is something that we've not discussed, so I'm curious what the group has to say, but has anybody done any virtual events with an entry fee? Goes on to say we have a tip-off dinner and Q&A with coaches that obviously you in normal times you would have a registration fee or a donation or whatever it may be to access, but anyone do anything virtual where you got to pay to be on the Zoom? Yeah, we haven't gone there either. Everything that we've done in this platform has been, we just want people to be engaged, and we really haven't looked at it as a revenue piece for us. Go ahead.
I would just share for that individual. I know Washington State University did one here recently. University of Wyoming has done one. So just to give them some schools to maybe contact or look at their social media or their web pages for information. I know there's many others, but those are the two to come to mind immediately.
Yeah, and I'll say too, I think like just in general, whether there's a fee or not, we're seeing that registrations have gone down with virtual events. People are on Zoom all day for work, happy hours with their friends on Zoom. It's already become so commonplace now that how do we make it a unique enough event that people want to jump on? It used to be, a coach was coming and that was a big enough draw, but now people spend so much time on their computer. How do we make, and we're struggling with this too. So if anyone has suggestions, I'd love to hear them, but like, how do you make the unique virtual event truly unique?
Yeah, Tatiana, I think there is a Zoom fatigue, right? I mean, I think we all see it probably professionally, but I think we're seeing it from donors a little bit. I'll share a quick story of what I found was interesting. We We have a construction project going on. We're building a softball stadium, and we took a virtual tour of it. And we did it on Zoom, right? So we had our head coach who's dynamic and is talking about the project, and then we went all basically you're in the construction site. I mean, you're in the construction zone of this thing, taking people around, showing the locker room. The field itself is probably 50% of the way done, but the support structure is almost done, right? So you can get in there, see the locker room, you can see coaches' offices, you can see the weight room. I mean, it's a really, really neat thing. The one thing that they did, I thought was pretty smart, and we hadn't done it yet, and it's all full credit on our softball staff. They did it at 10 a.m. on a Sunday. They did it on a weekend, right? They did it when it was convenient for people, right? And that we were missing that a bit, right? I mean, we were doing it at 4:30 on a Tuesday, or 6 o'clock on a Wednesday, or whatever, right? We were doing those types of engagements. So I think for us going forward, maybe we need to look at being smart and realizing, when do folks have some downtime? When are folks at home? When are folks around their family? When are folks ready to do this? So that's just my advice to the group there. At least we found it kind of on accident, and kudos to our softball staff for getting it done. But it worked out really, really well. So shifting gears a little bit, and Mahmood, you and I talked about this, and this is something that I'm actually came away from our conversation going to use here is really, when you look at your staff when it comes to goals and engaging, measuring engagement, right? Whether we right when we went home or now, what are you guys doing on your campuses? What's a visit now? How are we measured when it comes to engagement and those types of things?
Yeah, so I imagine we're like all of you, where we're dealing with two types of individuals. One type of individual who, don't come anywhere near me. I am in lockdown. I'm extremely afraid of the pandemic. And the other side of high fives, hugs, and handshakes, and let's get together for lunch. And so at our university development level, this conversation we recently had is what is counted as a substantial visit, a substantial contact. And obviously we were talking about Zoom earlier, and that's kind of the new method of face-to-face visits for individuals who aren't comfortable to meet with you, or if you're in a state or jurisdiction where you can't have that face-to-face time. So our university is looking at adopting a substantial contacts in times of disruption policy. And what that means is the face-to-face visit will now be replaced, or can be replaced, I should say can be replaced with a phone call or a video call, as long as you can prove a substantial move is taken during that visit. So, not necessarily the Mahmood calling Mike and saying, hey, how are you doing? How's the family? But, having a conversation of, oh, I learned Mike sold his business, or I learned Mike is interested in project XYZ, and documenting that. I think it's going to go deeper into a larger conversation of, in reality, this might be the new norm as we get back to whatever normalcy looks like. Folks comfortable having face-to-face, the traditional face-to-face visits now being your Zoom, video conferencing. I was sharing with Mike yesterday, I'm seeing more and more individuals kind of on that 55 plus demographics who are texting. And when you ask them what gets them excited about texting, they say, well, that's the only way I can keep in touch with my kids or grandkids. And so larger conversations, I think, are going to have to take place at the university level as far as what is a visit, and can you quantify a substantial move through a text message? Because there's been conversations I've had with text messages where I'm like, okay, I better go back in the office tomorrow afternoon and document that dialogue.
Yeah, those are, similar conversations on our campus. When we all send home, how do we finish, how do we finish goals, and think about as we, again, as we get into the new year, how do we keep doing what we're supposed to be doing, and so that's a real conversation for us ongoing. So, jumping into the chat here a little bit, curious of a couple questions about events, and basically the theme is, when do you take an event that's normally scheduled, whether it be a homecoming, whether it be Hall of Fame, when do you decide, or have you decided, hey, we're gonna punt that, and we're not going to do it this year, or we're going to move it virtual. And then two, how do you communicate that, right? Those folks that are always used to the Hall of Fame dinner or the gala or whatever it may be, what's the thought process with either you keeping it or we're going to go virtual?
I can chime in a little bit. Like I said, we moved our big facility, dedication virtual, or just postponed it. We decided not to go virtual. But we did also dedicate our golf course here a month ago. And, in that environment, it was most of our donors, or a lot of our donors, either had the ability to come travel here or they were already local. And we were able to find kind of a hybrid mix that allowed it to be in person in a socially distant, safe way, but also accommodate those who are just not ready for that kind of an event, and without feeling like they were let down, or left out. And I think we did a pretty good job. We had the golf outing with a much smaller group than we usually would. As we all know, golf courses allow for a little bit more social distancing, so it's a little more accommodating in that way. Outdoor weather, was great in September, so we were able to do a lot more. But like I said, we also then had video content from the whole day. We did interviews. We had a photo gallery. We're able to do some virtual components to allow for those folks who were outside of Maryland and couldn't travel, or just weren't ready to commit to coming to a social event. So I think in that way, we found a good marriage between the hybrids. And I think that's kind of the key, right? Is when you do decide to keep an event in person these days, you have to at least accommodate those who might not be comfortable with it and find a secondary option for them to still feel included if they're not, because we're going to have those folks. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, and kind of jumping on that with Tatiana there. We had our homecoming weekend at the Division II level. We don't have any fall sports right now. And so we still wanted to keep a homecoming weekend, but we just went completely virtual with that. And we had, some coaches roundtables. We had a virtual 5K, and then some other groups for across campus affinity groups to get together. And I think it was really well received, and I'm not sure if it was kind of before the Zoom fatigue kind of set in with everyone, but I will say our most successful event was our virtual 5K. It was free to enter, and I'm not sure if it was either the flexibility of the event, you could do it anytime during the weekend, submit some pictures, you'll get a medal, post on social media, do all of that, or if it was you're doing an activity just at home, so you're not sitting in front of your computer screen. So I don't really have the answer, but I'm not sure if there's any ways we can do events at home where maybe there's more of an activity involved on their end, and maybe that would kind of get more engagement. And then another event that we pivoted to virtual was our annual Giving Society. We have an annual gala, and we called it a gala in a box. And so with that, we mailed off our little galas. They had little cute bourbon glasses in there. It's really a stewardship event, thanking them for their giving. And we did a Facebook live stream, and we really encourage all of those participants to post their gala pictures in the comments. And that was our most attended event to date. And I think those are really involved and invested supporters of our college. And two, it was, we gave them little photo props. We gave them a lot of fun things to get involved with the event. And so that was another thing that we did that was well received.
Awesome. Kind of getting towards the end of our time here, and just want to go through, see if we're missing anything in the chat, but I think we're good there. But before we end, again, we ended on a positive, right? We all talked about all the positive things that are going on our campus with our student athletes. I think we're going to end here today with a donor success story, right? Each of us are going to go and tell something that's positive as a result of all of this, right? Of the shutdown of COVID, of doing all of this remotely. But maybe we'll talk up some success stories and leave everyone on a positive note. So I don't know who wants to start, but I'll throw it to the group.
Well, I already kind of talked about our golf outing, so I'll pivot on that one. But we had one donor who's she's incredible. Her and her husband have always been really, awesomely involved in so many projects, but she does live far away. And so she was not able to attend the event, and she's definitely an event goer. She likes being engaged. So, having those virtual assets for her to still feel like she was there, still get the excitement and feel that palpable excitement from the day was really cool for her. So we got great feedback from her on the video and the photo gallery, and feeling like she was there even though she wasn't. So to hear those virtual assets that do take a lot of time actually paid off was really great, because again, her investment in the project was huge, and so we wanted her to still feel like she could be there even from across the country.
Howard, Mahmood, Addie?
Well, for me, it's one's really personal. So I've got there's a longtime donor that's local from here in Champaign and very well known person, and it's really a story. And we do this work, and we're just raising money, and you feel like your relationships are really tied to the institution that you work at. For the most part, that's true. But this person, with all the social unrest that's going on and all the different things, reached out to me. He's a white male, and look at me, right? He had some questions. He just had never explored some things in terms of social justice, what's happening in the world, and those kind of things. And I'm a fundraiser. I'm the guy that's coming to ask him for money all these years, and I never knew this relationship would meant him sitting down with me and us both shedding a tear, and him really saying, I've used words that I'm not happy about. I don't understand what's going on. Help me. And he's gone to some of our assistant basketball coaches and others and asked the same. And it really, we've had some really good success here in terms of fundraising. We have. It's been fun, as you all have, and it's been a really good run. But I don't think I've been as moved about this work until it goes beyond the work. And it told me that what we're doing is right, that what we're doing here, that the impact that we can all have on people's lives is real. And I hope that I can press that on everyone that's out there. Like, people are listening to you. And it's not all of these things. I mean, they're listening to you about things, or listening to us, and those relationships, they really matter. And sometimes you wonder if they matter. If you've been somewhere when the AD leaves, the football coach leaves, and others leave, you realize, wow, and the development officers leave, you realize, wow, these people are still giving nothing. They don't miss a beat. They don't miss a beat. So it's really about the tickets, the parking, and the access to the coach, and not so much you. And this one, it felt really good to be able to talk to him and enlighten him a little bit, and to enlighten him on how other Americans feel, and to find some common ground. Felt really good, and we all have that power.
Hey, Mike, if I can jump in, I have a note I wanted to share with the group, because I think it's important for individuals to realize that we're going to get out of all this. And I started my career at the tail end of the .com and was involved when the housing crash took place. And the focus, I think, right now needs to be on quantity of donors versus quality of donors, meaning get as many donors in the door as you can now. Maybe not necessarily worry about the dollar side. And this is particularly on the annual fund. And then also the quantity of dollars versus the quality of dollars needs to be looked at, because basically anyone who's coming in now on the annual fund side is going to be there with you in the long run when we do get back to normalcy. You build your pipeline, you do your development research on them, and hopefully take them to the next level. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with the group. I have an individual who's a planned gift prospect. The individual has shared with previous colleagues that the University of Idaho is in their will. They want to leave money behind for athletic scholarships. My previous colleagues, my current colleagues, none of us have been able to get them to actually document that gift. And I have never had a face-to-face visit with him. Our goal was to meet almost a year ago at this time. He had to cancel due to some business commitments. The holidays hit. Our schedules just couldn't match up. And then obviously the pandemic started. So I called him in mid-April to kind of have that check on how are you doing. And when he picked up the phone, very pleasant. When I introduced myself again, demeanor just changed. And it was like, well, what do you want? And I think he was thinking I was calling to ask him for money during these uncertain times. And I just said, Craig, I'm just checking in on you. How are you doing? How's the family? And are you guys safe and sound? And the demeanor changed immediately, where he kind of took a deep breath, and I realized I was his therapist. He shared with me that through his church, he's been committed to helping seniors with their needs and those who couldn't leave their homes. So he became Uber to them. He became Uber Eats to them. He was doing yard work, and it showcased to me that you can't judge a book by its cover, right? This individual is extremely wealthy, but he's healthy and he's out there doing great things for his neighbors and his folks in his church. And since then, we've created kind of a pen pal-like relationship where it's either via phone or text messaging or communicating. Now, granted, we haven't had a face-to-face. He is uncomfortable meeting face-to-face until there's a vaccine out there and the pandemic is not necessarily part of our life. But it's been fun to kind of create a friendship, not knowing this person. I can't tell you what he looks like, what he drives, what he wears, et cetera. But I feel like I have a new friend, and hopefully once we get to the other side of this, a opportunity to have that question of, okay, how can we document your planned gift and make sure the university understands your intentions?
That's great. That's an awesome story. Addie?
Yes, I met a supporter of our basketball programs in July. I knew him during my time here as a student athlete, but I hadn't reached out to him or talked to him since I'd been back. And I actually was dropping something off at his house, and he was outside, and we started talking. And we have this loyal group of supporters that feeds the basketball team's breakfast during all of winter break, since our cafeteria is home. And it's might not be the healthiest breakfast, but it is the best breakfast, and it is so good. And so anyway, we were talking a little bit, and how are you doing? What's going on? How have you been? And he's like, what's really been on my mind is how are we going to get breakfast for an extended winter break? And how are we going to add more things to the menu? And I just love that, hey, we're here in July and you're already focused on, that's just what they love to do. They love to help support our programs in that way. And it just made me smile. So it's good.
That's awesome. That's a great connection. Grant, you can come back on. For me, kind of what, Mahmood had mentioned, or kind of the reverse order, right? We've been home for a couple of weeks, and on a Thursday morning, this guy calls me up, and I know him, but I don't know him real well. Kind of one of those, like, why is he calling me kind of a question, So I picked the phone up, and there was nothing wrong. Like, he didn't have an issue. He didn't have a complaint. He just asked how my kids were. I mean, that's it, right? I mean, just being human, total human. We didn't talk about UConn. We didn't talk about, it was just basically just checking in. Fast forward 2 weeks later, he does it again on Thursday morning. Just calls me, reaches out, how's it going, what's going on, kind of following up, remembers the conversation. And again, 2 weeks later after that. So it's every other Thursday, right? Every other Thursday. And we've gotten close, right? We're building a relationship, so much so that now either he or I call each other every other Thursday just to check in. And it's our thing we do now, right? I mean, it's just, and he's a great guy. And I've gotten to know him so much better because of all of this, right? But I think we've slowed down a little bit. And as a result of it, I've gained a friend and maybe even someone who's closer to our university, which obviously is a great thing. So, Grant, with that, I'll hand it back to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Howard, Tatiana, Mahmood, and Addie, thank you all for your time and energy today. Fantastic work. Mike, great job. I really appreciate you leading the way today. We'll hope you all will join us again on Thursday, November 12th, as we tackle doing more with less. That's it for today. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great evening. Thank you.